This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ICG's Digital Academy webinar series. I'm Sally Alsop, the ICG member responsible for running our webinar program. So for today's webinar, we're delighted to welcome back Eugene Murphy, founder and CEO of Indeemo. And Eugene will be accompanied by Maeve Dunn, who's senior strategist from Indeemo. During this webinar, Eugene will be presenting the Indeemo platform and demonstrating how Indeemo's new journey mapping capability can lend itself to researchers' digital ethnography and help them better understand omni-channel purchase and customer journeys. To illustrate this, Eugene will be taking us through 3 real examples showing how to effectively research a known journey, in this case a click and collect example, a more exploratory approach to journey mapping, looking at vaccines, and using the tool among employees working from home to understand their experiences. As usual, there'll be a Q&A session at the end of Eugene's talk, so do switch on your webcams at the end and raise your hand if you have a question, or if you prefer to remain anonymous, then type your question into the chat box and I'll read them out on your behalf. Could everyone please mute themselves as well while Eugene does his presentation. So before I hand over to Eugene, here are some of the exciting webinars and events we've got planned for you in April and May. Please make a note of these dates in your diaries. And don't forget that we're able to offer great value sponsorship for all our webinars. Sponsorship normally costs £120 for a lot of exposure on our website, mailers and social media, and of course on the day. Please get in touch with Lucy if you'd like to know more. So our speaker today is Eugene Murphy of Indeemo, and I will now hand over to Eugene.
Thank you, Sally. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon even, or good morning, yes. So let me share my screen here now. Let's get going. Right, so hopefully this is coming through. Right, I'm Eugene Murphy. I'm the founder and CEO of Indeemo, and very grateful to Lucy and Sally for giving us a slot here today to kind of take you through something that's new on our platform that we see as an emerging category of research that's largely being fueled by digital transformation. Okay, just to kind of give you some backstory, I guess Indeemo, when we started off, we've been around since 2016. I guess the foundation of what we do or what we enable on behalf of researchers like yourselves is kind of digital ethnography. So it's understanding humans in context. It's an asynchronous methodology that's predominantly mobile first and kind of media rich. So through our journey in terms of supporting ethnography and qual research over the years, what we've seen since COVID is a massive digital transformation. And broad strokes, there's this convergence of kind of market research, UX and CX happening client side as the entire kind of customer interaction becomes more omni-channel and more digitally enabled. So it's that context in which we're actually kind of leaning into journey mapping as a capability. And I'd like you to take you through that today, just to hopefully inspire you in terms of the capabilities of the research that the technology can enable, and maybe spark some conversations with your clients. Okay, so just to kind of take you through this. So basically, I would say COVID-19, we're all back to normal now, thankfully, but it's changed, right? So essentially, I equate it to kind of a digital meteorite hitting the planet. And we all went into our kind of digital bunkers for a while, and we came back out, and everything had changed. So the high street has been decimated. You know, our daily lives now kind of take place remotely. Okay, so technologies like Zoom have become verbs. Everything arrives at your door now. Retail is on a downslope, and I put TikTok in here basically because TikTok is emblematic of the emergence of video as a means of communication and social networking. Okay, and as we look at smartphones getting more powerful and 5G emerging in the next couple of years, a lot of our communication will be video based, and as a result, we see research moving in that direction as well, video over mobile. Okay, what you've seen basically is, you know, a 10x speed of digital transformation. So if you go back to 2019, everybody was saying we should digitally transform. even lots of big companies had technology concerns about Zoom or Teams, and in 2 weeks they implemented this in March in 2020. So everything transformed very, very quickly. It was a huge change agents. Okay. What it also spurred basically is, you know, a lot of delivery services. So, and obviously you've got this whole Bitcoin blockchain thing going on in the background as well. So our thesis is that every startup, every new business that's going to be created going forward will be partially, if not entirely, digitally enabled. Okay, so even your local cafe now probably has a pre-order where you can go click and collect. Okay, so if you buy into that theory, then basically every customer journey going forward will be omni-channel. So they'll probably browse on their smartphones for Google. They may book a click and collect on their smartphones. They may go to the store to collect the goods and come home. So commerce is moving across channels: social, search, mobile, desktop, in-store, click and collect. So it's becoming harder then basically as a researcher to stay close to the context of the customer experience across all these different touch points. Okay, so traditional methodologies are being stretched right now, and what they're doing is they're only giving you a kind of a small segment of an entire human journey. And I guess that's the problem we're trying to solve for you, to allow you to stay connected across all these different touch points and all these different channels and platforms. Okay, so what is Indeemo? So our kind of North Star basically is to help you as researchers connect with your clients' customers, regardless of where they are, so that you can get a kind of more authentic, rich, raw, contextual understanding of what they're doing when they're doing it. Okay, so it's very much kind of a getting you into the context and getting you into the moments that matter. So in terms of a shopping list of research methodologies, so this is everything that we can support you with when you're offering your service. So Barry, to your point earlier, right? So it's diary studies, digital ethnography, it's mobile ethnography. Okay, it could be open-ended foundational strategic research at the category level for brands, for example. Journey mapping is kind of something we're embracing now because of this kind of convergence of design into research. Okay, but Indeemo is very powerful either as a standalone capability or as an augmentation of other qual or quant methods. Okay, so lots of what we do is pre-tasking your interviews or your focus groups so that you can get to know the participant before you get to meet the participants. Okay, so it's a great way of kind of enriching the conversations, the interviews you have, so that you know your conversation starts from a data set versus an exploration. You have clients, maybe some of you do segmentations. It's a great way of kind of turning segmentations into video to understand these humans that are behind the personas, behind the pie charts. We do remote product testing, where certainly during COVID, where samples get shipped to participants and the research takes place over our technology in their own home, in their everyday context, which can be great rather than a lab setting, for example. And increasingly then it's journey based. So what is the path of purchase for your customer? You know, what is the shopper experience, whether it's in-store or online or e-commerce now? And increasingly, what is the customer experience? So traditionally, a lot of research was done in silos: marketing, design, CX. What we're seeing now basically is businesses at the board level are starting to realize that this is the same human moving through all the silos in a company, and they're trying to follow the customer through various phases of a journey, which may be marketing related, pre-purchase, could be UX related in terms of e-commerce, and it could be the post-purchase experience as well in terms of customer experience. The last thing we're seeing as a trend is, because remote work has become the norm now and hybrid has become the norm, employee experience is becoming a huge opportunity for researchers because businesses need to understand the context in which their employees are working remotely. Okay, works on consumer and works on B2B, and incredibly flexible in terms of how you can use it. Okay, just so you know what Indeemo is, we are a software company. Okay, so this is a SaaS platform. So it's delivered as a smartphone app for your research participants who you recruit as you normally would. So recruitment for using a platform like Indeemo is the same as recruiting for a focus group or an IDI. The incentives are the same hourly rate. So there's nothing new in terms of the ops of you setting up a project. We can work with your existing partners. It's just we're providing you with a new way to connect with the participants and a new place to do the research. Okay. The experience for you as a research and for your client is to log in through your computer into a dashboard. Okay, and that's where all the uploads from your research participants will appear and where you can interact with them. And I'll show you the capabilities later in the demo. I've got Maeve on the call here this morning because we also layer a strategy on top of software. Okay, so what we do is, if you're wondering after this conversation today whether Indeemo could be a fit for pitching something into a client or solving a brief that might be on your desk, what we'll do is we'll jump on a call with you before we ever do business, and we'll kind of brainstorm the approach, and we'll tell you very quickly whether it's a fit or not, and if it's not, we'll tell you. But chances are we will be able to shape a strategy for you to win that business. Okay, so we'll help you with task design, and we'll help you calibrate your research to the technology, and of course we'll take care of all the tech support for your clients and your participants. Okay, the Indeemo app is kind of like a social networking style app. Okay, so it's a bit like Instagram with a set of task lists. So the respondents, after they're recruited and screened and opted in, will download our app, and then basically taking part in the project with Indeemo is as simple as posting to Facebook. Okay, so they're using a smartphone app to take photos, videos, notes, or screen recordings, and basically they're posting them wherever they are, whether they're at home or in store or at work, and that appears in your dashboard instantly. Okay, clients love video. It's extremely rich and contextual. It's great at communicating insights throughout organizations in terms of your reports. Okay, we're very, very strong on video. So video can be configured up to 10 minutes for every upload, and it's very, very robust. Okay, if you're looking for a solution that's video based on mobile, I think we probably are best in class. Works on iOS, the App Store, and it works on Google devices as well, Android devices, and it's localized into 20 different languages. So again, it's very powerful for multi-market. The dashboard is where you log in and your clients log in. And it's probably like a hybrid of Pinterest and a private one-to-one Facebook. So conceptually, that's probably the best description of it. All these uploads from participants, photos, notes, screen recordings, text appear here for you. You've got a researcher login with lots of filters. So it's very simple for you to filter on a particular task or an individual respondent. So you can work all these filters together to really drill down into the information and find the insights that you need. Okay, you can also invite your client in as an observer, and they get a read-only access, and essentially it's awesome at kind of building empathy across their organization. So this is where the customer comes to life on the dashboard. We've got a suite of tools in there, which I won't go into in too much detail today, because I would like to kind of show you these journey mapping use cases. But you know, your recruiter can log into Indeemo and they can send all the reminders and do all that kind of admin for you. We've got automated video transcription baked in there, so that we're turning video into text, and we turn that text into keyword clouds. Okay, so essentially we'll turn all of your videos into searchable keyword clouds, so you can get a very quick signal as to what's happening in all of this video. We've got adjustable playback speeds. You can clip segments of videos and put them in your report. So again, we're very strong on video on the back end, and you can use tags as a coding mechanic to categorize and code the information that appears on your dashboard. The other powerful thing about Indeemo is that you can interact privately with each individual participant. So, and the UX is a bit like a private one-to-one Facebook conversation. Okay, so respondents upload a post. If you've got a question or a comment, what you can do is you can comment on that post on the dashboard, and they'll get a push notification straight to the smartphone. So if they're on a shopping mission, they could literally be standing in Asda, and if you're online while they're online, basically you can message them from the dashboard. So it's great at kind of getting under the skin of what's really happening. And again, when you're designing your research, you don't have to have every question in your discussion guide. You can keep it light touch, and then you can kind of follow the data and the learnings that the respondents are sharing with you. And you can have individual private conversations with each respondent. So it's a great way to follow up and probe and kind of build rapport with these participants over the course of a study. Right, journey mapping. Right, so what we've seen basically since COVID is this kind of fusion of experience and insights. Okay, and I guess my own kind of thesis is that your customer experience is your brand now going forward. Okay, so if you've a client who's looking to kind of understand the customer journey, or a patient journey, or a visitor journey, or an employee journey, for example, then what we have is a capability that allows you to turn essentially digital ethnography into kind of automated journey mapping at the participant level. Okay, so how this works, and I'll show you some examples shortly, but essentially when we design your study, you can set up a series of tasks, okay, and then each task is given the same 5-point scale which you can configure. Okay, so it can be just a series of emojis, it can be just text, it could be just numbers, or it could be a combination of all. Okay, currently it's a 5-point scale, and what respondents are doing then is they're completing tasks, okay, and they're using the rating basically to quantify a feeling or an experience. Okay, now what we do then basically is we turn their diary of posts into an actual visual journey map. So you can scroll through it left to right, and you can instantly see where the positive or negative moments are in the journey. Okay. Now, you also have the power then to click into individual moments. So what we're looking at here is a screen recording. And you can see basically here, we're speeding up the video. We've got adjustable playback speeds and we're transcribing the videos. So in this instance, this is a kind of a click and collect journey where the respondents are, in this case, they're looking for inspiration for a recipe on BBC. Okay. If you zoom along the journey, we've got desktop screen recording here. So in this situation, then the participant is on their computer. What they're doing then is they're kind of booking the collection experience. So again, now they're on the computer, we're recording what's happening on their screen. We're also capturing their voice. Obviously, this is muted. And you get to watch them from a usability perspective in terms of what is the user experience of booking that collection. Okay. If some of you are into consumer shopping using regular video, you can basically see the out of the box experience. What did they buy? Okay, and then basically zooming along here, basically you follow their journey moment by moment, see them actually cooking a meal or using a product or consuming a product or enjoying an experience. Okay, so what we're doing there basically is we're really bringing these kind of journeys to life individually for participants. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the dashboard here now. Okay, and just kind of bring this to life for you. So for the next kind of 10 or 15 minutes, now what I'll do is I'll take you through a couple of use cases, but maybe just as a kind of a punctuation, is there any questions so far in terms of capabilities or what we've discussed before we dive in? All good? Okay, so I keep going. Excellent. All right, so in this situation, so there's 3 examples here where you can use journey mapping, right? So one of them would be kind of a known journey. So a client comes to you and says, look, we need to understand our click and collect experience. Can you basically audit this for us and kind of bring the experiences to life? And again, the commercial context is they probably have a net promoter score where they know that the collection experience might not be great, but they don't know why. Okay, so when you're looking at these kind of experience audits or measuring an experience, chances are the brief is stimulated by analytics or surveys or some sort of quantitative signal that says that things aren't going right. But the client, because this thing is omni-channel and remote, they really don't understand why. So that's the context of this individual study. So what we did here in this study was we asked participants across 3 different countries, basically, to all go through a click and collect journey. Okay, so the sequence of the journey here was an introduction selfie video where they're talking about their experience with click and collect so far. A screen recording task where we asked them to go and find inspiration for recipes, a usability focused task where we asked them to actually go and do a click and collect experience and record the UX so that the UX and the dev and the e-commerce team can understand how that experience is for their users. We then asked them to go and collect the journey. So from the lens of a service designer, you now want to understand wayfinding and the actual in-store collection experience. And then basically everything was about a reflection, coming home and cooking and consuming the product. Okay, I see there's one question here actually, so I'm going to jump in here for a second. Okay, Lucy, thanks very much. Okay, so just to show you what Indeemo looks like, so we might take it through the lens of the journey map first. So if I click into this journey map, what we've done then basically is we've tasked the participants to go on that journey and record their experience moment by moment. So this is our journey map at the moment. So what you're seeing here now is you're seeing this respondent, Ronan, okay, going through the entire journey left to right. And on our journey map, what we're doing is we're actually plotting the journeys of each individual participant, and we're displaying that for you on the dashboard. Okay, so you can scroll through this moment by moment. Okay, and you can start to see patterns very quickly. So you're seeing here that the collection point is a bit of a low point. Again, you know, it's the same kind of experience is happening here. Okay, so as you scroll through these journeys, you're instantly getting a visual read on what's positive or negative. And then again, in this experience, basically, if we jump in, you can click into individual moments and you can see why an experience is positive or negative. Okay, so from this participant here, if I filter on, I'm going to choose one participant here, for example, Mary. I'll filter in here. What you see here then is all the kind of capabilities of Indeemo are coming to life. So you've got an intro selfie video where they're talking about a previous experience. What I'm going to click into here now is I'm going to mute this basically, is you're now looking at a screen recording of this individual participant looking for recipes online. So from a client who's trying to understand the impact of influencers, for example, or what influences the path to purchase, what you're seeing here now is you're seeing basically this participant on Instagram browsing for recipes and browsing for ideas. Okay, so we can click ahead here and zoom down here, and now you get to understand, I guess, the impact of influence and the impact of social on any particular path to purchase. Okay, now if I click on the arrow here, what that allows me to do then is zoom along to the next touch point, and in this case, basically what we have here is we have the participants booking the collection experience. Okay, so the task here is to go in and shop for something online and book the collection experience. And what you can see here then basically is if you zoom along the video using this manual scroll here, you can jump ahead basically and you can watch them shop. Okay, you can understand what they're watching and what they're searching for. Now what you're seeing here in this particular moment is how do they find what they're looking for. So are they searching through text? Okay, are they you can see them typing and struggling to spell here. Are they actually being visually led by offers, for example? So we're seeing a lot of research on e-commerce now going into the actual mechanic of search, okay, and how consumers are shopping online. So are they visually led by offers and tapping on something 2 for 1? Are they actually going in with a list? Are they actually and doing a search as they go? So from a usability perspective, the screen recording is very powerful, helping you see what's happening online. And at these digital touch points. And then basically what you have is here is if you click into this moment, they're standing outside the supermarket, couldn't find the signage at any particular, it was very, very difficult to do the collection experience, and that basically filters out through all the participants. And then using regular video, what you do then basically is you see them at home, they're taking you through the journey of actually cooking the meal, and from a retailer's perspective, then you're giving them an entire end-to-end understanding of the shopper journey and the path to purchase. Okay, so with the journey mapping, what we have then basically is the ability to show you individual journeys. Okay, but we also as well have this capability to help you kind of average out every individual participant's experience into what we call an experience graph. Okay. So in this situation here, you see at this stage, this participant did 5 or 6 posts and rated them all as being excellent, because she's obviously a very good cook. So you get to follow each individual moment, and the journey map basically shows you their experience or their rating at each individual upload or each individual moment. Okay, so this is great for kind of getting into the depth, and it's ethnographic, and it's allowing you to understand the participants individually. But if the client is just looking for almost a net promoter score of the experience, and what they can do then is they can click on this experience graph. What we do is we average out all of the ratings at each task, which is in this case the stage of a journey, and this allows you basically to almost give the client an exploded net promoter score of the customer experience at each stage of the journey. Okay, now we can do this individually as well. So if I jump in here, for example, to Eddie at the moment, now what we're doing is we're giving you the experience graph of each participant, and you can see this kind of UX around shopping, collecting is obviously a low point on the journey. Okay, I can toggle back again to this individual participant, and you can scroll down then basically to see again why this was such a negative touch point. So if you click on this, there was no one at the click and collection points, for example. So you're starting to interrogate the data through a kind of a measurement lens here on this experience graph, and you can also toggle back to the journey map to understand why the experience is positive or negative. Okay, and then just to zoom out one step further, so now you're seeing these kind of individual experience graphs for each respondent. If we remove all the respondents, what Indeemo does then basically is it gives you basically the graph of every participant, their average experience at each stage of the journey for different cohorts of participants. So in this Irish group, obviously, clearly the click and collect experience in France is awesome. Not so good here in Ireland. So what you can see then is you can bring back this experience graph to the client, and you can understand basically what stages of the journey they really need to focus on in terms of improving the experience. Okay. Maeve, I might bring you in there as well, basically, just to kind of chime in terms of how clients are using this then, or how they're working with this sort of data, and what your experience is working with them, and how they're using this information to bring it back to the clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So by looking at the two views here, I guess the experience graph is excellent and most used for a known journey. So you can set out each task almost as like a stage in that particular journey. And then you can get your average, as Eugene mentioned, the net promoter score within that. Where the journey map can be extremely useful is more exploratory. So you may set out your tasks as what we call an all at once task list. Maybe you've 3 or 4 general touch points or topics in which you want people to post to, so that you can try and understand who are the personas, what journeys are they taking. I don't know anything about them and I want to find out firsthand what their experience is. So what you'll get on the journey map is you get each time they upload, you get a node on that particular graph. So then you can see actually up on the top here. So if you look at Ronan, quite interestingly, Ronan, he went from saying hello to then time to shop to then planning his meal, right? So he's not a planner. He went shopping before he actually went planning his meal. If you scroll down there, Eugene, to the next participant, they actually went planning their meal before they went shopping. So by keeping it as an all at once task list, you're allowing them then, as and when that moment occurs, to actually post to that particular topic. So we work with clients on lots of different, healthcare, for example. We worked on a recent project in relation to medical devices. So we set out tasks. It was a 4-week study, and it was in relation to use this particular device, and we want you to shower with this device. So it was an adhesive, essentially. And we want you to shower, we want you to go through your daily life, and we want you to post a picture of you wearing the device every single day of the next 4 weeks. So what you were able to see in the end was you had different individuals. The men who actually had to shave the area found that it got itchy over time. So they actually it went down basically as the hair began to grow back. Anyone else, there was other, females in particular, no real issues, except they were spending longer time in the shower. And what was happening was the adhesive was becoming less effective. So this was quite useful to be able to look at the journey map to see whether people's experiences over time became more positive or negative. And then, as Eugene mentioned, you can start to delve into that further. From a B2B perspective, again, we do a lot of kind of colleague experience work. So do they start to, I guess, become more acquainted to the environment over time? Does that change in the rating? Does their interaction or their relationships, does that improve over time? So in the journey map, you also have the ability to filter down to a particular task in order to get your mini map. You can also add tags or mini touch points within that, and you can actually filter by those tags to also create a smaller map. So as Eugene mentioned, various different ways of really setting up the study, whether it be more of a known journey, as I mentioned, or an exploratory journey. And then you can choose whether the journey map, where you want to get down to the smaller touch points, or whether it's the experience graph, where you really want to see that aggregate view or that overall view. So yeah, hope that helps.
So there's a couple of other studies there as well. I'll take you into. One's a vaccine journey, which is much more exploratory, and we'll go into the employee experience as well. Just wondering, is there any questions so far, or any comments, folks, in terms of what we've shown you so far?
I think it seems to be very clear, Eugene, so I should just plow on if I were you.
Very good, excellent. Loving that. Okay, so let's go into so as I say, this click and collect experience was very much a known journey where the client knew broadly what the customer, the phases or the stages that the customer went through. Okay, so this is fairly logical. You can follow the click and collect experience. Now, if we zoom out for a second, right, and if you have no clue what's going on, so basically just on this kind of this vaccine journey, and to show you another use case here. So if you're wanting to do journey mapping as an exploration, and the client really has no kind of hypothesis about the stages of the journey or what the client is doing, and they have the courage, I guess, to do an open-ended brief and just let the customer or the user guide them, then this vaccine journey is kind of a proxy for how you could offer an exploratory journey mapping service to one of your clients. So in this situation, what we did was we did a single task study. Okay, and you can see the task here. I'll zoom in basically. So very, very lightweight, very open-ended, broadly around the vaccine experience, the vaccine journey. What we're doing in this situation, we're saying, look, at any stage over the next 3 to 4 weeks, whenever you do anything related to getting a vaccine, just take a picture, record a video, take a screenshot, upload a note, tell us what you're doing, where you are, and what's particularly positive or negative. Okay, and then we're asking them to use an emoji to kind of rate either the experience or their feeling at each stage of that individual journey. Okay, so with Indeemo again, right? So what you can do is you can look at this, you can filter through the lens of respondents here. So you can, I'll throw myself under the bus here basically, right, in terms of showing you my journeys, right? So from an ethnography or from a diary study perspective, if we go to the very bottom of this timeline here, this is essentially their feed or their blog of moments as they go through the process of getting a vaccine. Okay, and again, you can see them literally. This is me commuting to actually get the vaccine. I'm running late, arriving at the venue. It's pouring rain. So you follow that all the way through, right? So you literally walk in the shoes of these participants through any kind of journey that you need to understand on behalf of your clients. So this is the sort of rich ethnographic information we can help you capture. Okay, now what's interesting about this again is you can actually use the rating here to filter the data and kind of zoom in on negative touch points. So if I looked at this from the poor, very poor scenario right here, what you're looking at then basically is you're basically able to realize what the participant is doing. You can zoom through the data in terms of what's positive or negative. So the collage view might be interesting here on this because you're able to kind of quickly get a visual snapshot of the negative touch points of any journey. It's usually around information, you know, the venue, so that's kind of service design from an experience perspective, or it could be around communications. Okay, taking this back into the journey map, then what you can see basically is you can basically analyze the journey through the negative touch points all the way through as well. Okay, because I've kind of cut the journey map down into the negative moments. But if I jump back up out of this here basically and get rid of this rating, what you can see here then basically is you can see the journey moment by moment all the way through. Okay, so a screen recording of booking the vaccine, for example, or booking the appointments. So again, from a usability perspective, you can see what the participant is going through, okay, and what's positive and negative from a UX perspective. And you can zoom all the way along. So obviously wayfinding, getting to the venue, something they can address and they can look at as well. Okay, so you can move all the way through that in terms of doing this. Now, where it gets interesting from a tagging perspective is we have these tags then. What you can do basically is you can jump in here and you can start using tags to code the journey into different stages or touch points. Okay, so what we've done here then basically they're doing their online research. Again, this one could be communication, for example. So you can actually, as a researcher, you can actually code this information into different stages, and then you could filter down the journey, for example, where they're talking about online research, okay, or they're online, okay, and you can cut that information then into different journeys. You can see the experience here is broadly negative, okay. Again, the strategy here is that something that you would employ at the very start of a research phase with your client, where you would maybe get 10 participants and to do an open-ended single task journey map, where you could actually explore the journey and then basically collaborate with the client to start coding this into stages and figuring out patterns and trends and touch points. Okay, so this vaccine journey is probably the first thing you might ever do with a client on a journey mapping journey with them. Once you've coded this into stages, then you would probably revert to something like the click and collect, where there are known stages and you might get respondents to go through those journeys, but you define the stages for them. Okay. The last one I want to show you here very briefly is the employee experience opportunity. Okay, because I do believe, back to work here, basically back to the office study. So what we're seeing trending at the moment is a lot of employee experience briefs kind of surfacing now, where companies are becoming more, you know, service design is kind of being embraced at the boardroom level, and clients are not only focusing on the customer anymore, they're focusing on their colleagues as well. Okay, so in this example here, just to show you what we're looking at here, basically to give you an example of what a project like this would look like. Let me jump into this here and I go back to office. this is an all-at-once task list. And what we're doing here basically is these are basically what typical tasks would look like for an employee experience study. Okay, so you got the intro selfie where you're talking about the role. Okay, what's positive or negative. A video of working from home. Okay, so that the employee can understand the work context. Specifically asking about their workspace. Okay, equipment they use, devices, etc., etc. Shopping for equipment online if they do need to buy office equipment or anything. So that's a kind of a UX focused study. Again, we've done studies where companies have brought employees back to the office, back to the workspace. So what is that first day back? How is the experience? Talk about commuting, you know, the workspace in the office and the variance between home and in office working. Okay. Again, just from a tasking perspective, you probably used other technologies and other techniques, but the task is typically no longer than a tweet, and you know, typically 3 to 5 questions. Okay, so that'll give you some example of what a back to office study looks like. And again, from a journey map perspective, and if I jump back in here, what you get to see then basically is you get to follow the employee journey where you're looking at their home workspace, for example. So from an employee perspective, you can actually see their setup at home and in terms of what's going on. You can click through this here, look at chairs, look at you know, ergonomics, human factors and stuff like this. You can see basically the experience where they're coming back to work and they're talking about hygiene in the office. Okay, and that was obviously very important during the point of COVID. And you can follow the journey all the way through and reflect on it. So what this gives employees or employers the ability to understand, I guess, the workspaces and the experience of the employees, whether they're at home or in the office. And again, this is something we see as trending as a potential category of research going forward, based on the trends we've seen in the last 6 months. Okay. I'll probably stop talking there now, guys. Hopefully that's enough to kind of get you thinking about this. If there's any particular questions or comments, it'd be great to kind of chat through specifics with you.
Thanks, Eugene. That was really, really interesting. Yeah, I just have a quick question. So can you tell us about any experiences you've had of using this for clients in the B2B sector? Because a lot of this seems to be sort of consumer oriented. Have you had any B2B applications at all?
I'll leave this one for Maeve. Maeve.
Yeah, absolutely. So most recently, I guess, we've actually worked with a particular client who was outsourcing some of their services, essentially asking tradespeople to work for them on behalf of them. So what they wanted to understand was essentially the service design, from start to finish. What are all the touch points they have with them and what works and what doesn't work? So their hypothesis was that they were actually churning a lot of these individuals working for them. So they just wanted to understand why. So what they did was they set out things like paperwork, things like installation, set out the different stages, not assuming at any point that people were going to be on a particular stage. You know, it wasn't a known kind of a journey, I guess. So it was all at once. And then those individuals were onboarded and then they actually mapped out their journeys. So what they actually found was it was a lot of the process of where they worked with our client was free on their behalf. So they were doing a lot of free work for them. And in the current environment, they decided that, hey, this isn't worth it. I'm doing a lot more. I could go out and get some business myself and not work with you guys. And there was one particular stage itself when it came to kind of the pre-installation phase, was the phase in which they saw the most negative feedback that they were getting from these particular individuals. So that's the most recent use case we've had, and it worked extremely well. Again, Eugene mentioned the colleague experience work. So as he mentioned, we've worked on a number of projects recently where they're all trying to understand the employees coming back to the office. What does that look like? Equally, if they're working, we do a lot of work with kind of insurance companies, so on to find out about particular sales reps. What's it like? What's their day-to-day? What does that look like? Customer support, again, being more on the customer support side of it, dealing with the customers. What does that look like? So lots of cases, I guess, from more of a strategic element, I would say incentives and, you know, over recruit is definitely important using this type of methodology. So you're probably looking at an over recruit of about 40%. And the payment of incentive, whether that is in some sort of a voucher or something like that within the organization is very important, and also belief and buy-in. So I would suggest you do pre-interviews if you're going to be doing any B2B type studies. Pre-interview, get them to believe in the study that they're doing, really show them that it is going to go somewhere. This research is going to help them. So just having that buy-in, it's a little bit different when it comes to B2C, that you do need to have, I guess, more planning around it.
Absolutely, and just a great point there, Maeve. I think with B2B, you're a distraction to the respondent versus an extra piece of cash for a consumer, right? So I think so in that respect, Maeve is right. When you're doing B2B, the respondent almost needs to believe that they're being listened to, that there's going to be an impact from their actual participation in the research. So usually we've got a bank at the moment, for example, working with accountants, okay, to get them to try out new software. So in that situation, it's amazing engagement, because there's going to be direct impact of the participants' feedback being merged into products. The other thing as well with B2B is you probably need to double your fieldwork time. So if the client thinks it's going to happen in 2 weeks, it's probably going to take 4. Okay, and you need to manage the expectation level around that. So you need to 40% over recruit. Your incentive is probably going to be 3 times what your consumer incentive would typically be. And you probably do need to double your fieldwork time and give them a bit of flexibility, because again, they are busy and your project is essentially a distraction for them. But if you manage expectations and screen well, like Maeve says, we're getting some amazing engagement in terms of B2B.
Okay, great. Anybody else got any questions? No? Well, it looks like you've answered everybody's questions very clearly, Eugene. So, and Maeve, thank you very much. Thank you very much for delivering this very interesting presentation. Oh, is Liz going to ask something? Hello, Liz.
Hi there. Just, I mean, I've been talking to Indeemo for years, and bless their hearts, I haven't yet had the opportunity to work with you, which is so sad. I do quite a few international projects, and I could see that you were offering their projects in France and China and elsewhere. How one barrier I found with some platforms, which have not been mobile only, they've been mobile and desktop, is that they cannot handle reliable automated transcription or simultaneous translation. So how are you doing on that, and what languages can you support?
Maeve, do you want to jump in on that one as well? I'll let you have a
Yes.
crack.
So it's Microsoft AI, Liz, that we're providing. Full
Okay.
disclosure, it's not 100%. Okay.
None of them are.
None of them are.
Never
None of them are.
Yeah.
But we do have, so look, a way to get around that is we do have the ability to edit the transcript on the platform, right? I would say for good success, it is good to have a local moderator if you can, okay? Because they can come in and then they can actually edit the transcript on the platform at the same time. So within European languages, you're probably looking at about 60 to 70% accuracy currently is what we're seeing. Now that is depending on their own accents and so on, as you know, it can be different. In terms of translations, we don't provide translations at the moment. However, we do have little hacks in terms of Google Chrome and Google Translate and so on. And we have an exporting capability that if they you use on Google Docs, essentially you can translate that back using Google Translate. But I think if you have a good local moderator, which will train them, by the way, so you don't have to worry about any of that and trying to teach them how to use the tool. We do lots of multi-market work, and we'll train the moderators, we'll show them how they can edit the transcripts, how they can also run that through Google Translate if needed, if they're surfing on Chrome. So we can help you with that. But yeah, again, like any other AI, unfortunately, it's not 100%.
Yeah.
Can
like
I
the
ask a
playbook for
follow-up?
international. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, do continue.
Yeah, I think the playbook for international is what we see is consultants like yourselves would probably have a network of international partners. Okay, so the ability to find somebody locally to do the moderation, do the translation, is the way to do this, right? I think typically the workflow is you'll get signed off the brief in English. Okay, we'll work with you to kind of optimize your questions for the technology, and then you'll put that document out to all your partners. They'll translate it into the local language, and we'll program it into the system for you. Okay, and then all the moderation and the support would take place by through your partner on the ground. What we can do as well is what we've seen work is you can export all of the contents in the local language, video transcripts and written text into spreadsheets out of Indeemo. And there is an actual, if you're using Google Sheets, there's actually a Google Translate formula in Google Sheets that will turn a spreadsheet of French into English on the fly for you. So we have capabilities and techniques that are very, very effective. It's not perfect. Typically, the report will be prepared locally by your colleague on the ground and translated and then served back to you, basically to present back to the client. That's typically the playbook.
Yeah, no,
Sorry
we
for
have a
interrupting. Any
Google
questions?
Google Translate. My follow-up question was actually a different one, and I apologize, I wasn't able to join the lunch and learn the other week, so you probably covered it in there. But a challenge with some platforms is that the back end, so the management of the participants, reminders, and simply export and also managing the client is not great in my humble opinion. What does the back end of it in Demo look? What does you've shown us the management of the participants and how to bring together the journey maps, which is great. But what about managing the participants, reminders, the participants, timing and so forth? What does the back end look like?
It's beautiful, Liz, and simple, right, is the answer. So this is what it looks like. So and the beautiful thing about this as well is we have a recruiter login, so you can get your recruiter into Indeemo separately. And what they see is they see this respondent screen, they see the task completion screen, but they don't see the data if you so wish. Okay. So if we filter on a participant here, basically we've got French, Chinese, and Ireland. We're showing you at the participant level their completion rate. Okay, so both of these participants are 100%. This respondent is at 56. And if you want to, you can click on a reminder here, basically, and that'll send out a push notification to that particular participant. Okay, if there's 3 or 4 participants where you want to do a multi-select, for example, you can scoot down here and select 4. Okay, and then what you can do is you can do a group reminder. You can customize this text here, and that'll go out to them immediately. Okay, so you can manage activity and reminders. I would say for 20 participants, it'll take you 20 minutes a day. All right. Now that's the summary at the respondent level. And again, you can export all of this activity into Excel here, and it'll throw down an Excel file into your downloads folder. So it's really, really simple to export that and give that to your participants. The task completion screen is more specific because in the task completion screen, then you can basically filter through the lens of, let's have a look at the Irish group and see what everybody's done for the collection. So if you're managing activity through the lens of a task, you can see then that everybody's at 100% on that task, but this respondent needs to be chased. And you can click on that and click on the reminder button. You can send out that notification as well. Okay, so really, really simple and efficient in terms of activity and management. And again, you can export all of that information, all of those completion rates into Excel, give that to your recruiter, and they can distribute the incentives then based on the level of completion.
Super.
Eugene, does that come through to them as an email, or how do they see that reminder when it comes through to them?
It depends. So if they're using the app, when they sign up to the app, basically we encourage them strongly to use push notifications. So you can see these little icons here. You can see that this respondent has enabled push notifications in the app, and this participant has blocked them. Okay. Now, in some studies, sensitive healthcare studies, we can do this entirely anonymously. So we would insist, or your recruiter would insist, that push notifications get enabled. And in this situation, basically, if I clicked on this respondent, this will go straight to the lock screen of their phone. Okay. The other powerful thing here as well, basically, is you can see a full history of all the chasers, all the reminders you sent. So if you're losing track, and what did I say to this participant yesterday, we have a full history of all the reminders and messages that you sent to that participant.
Can I ask another follow-up? And a slightly
Absolutely.
different thing about the back end, which is about managing the clients and the observers. One platform I use a lot for desktop communities, we always have piles of clients we sign up, and maybe they log on once or one logs on a lot, but we have no information on that platform about when they've logged on, how often they've logged on.
Yes.
How much
Yeah.
information do you capture on observers and clients?
That's really interesting, actually. We don't capture that at the moment, Liz, full disclosure, right? But it is a great feature. So, we don't have backroom chat functionality currently. I know some technologies
Okay.
do.
Most
Some of our
clients
see that,
don't bother using it. They just send emails,
yeah,
don't they?
exactly. Some of our clients see that as a feature so that the client isn't too active in terms of chasing the researcher. But it is interesting. That information is easily got at, actually. So it's a feature we could add for sure, basically, and send you triggers when each observer logs in. It's not there at the moment, but it's something that could easily be put on. Nobody's asked for it, interestingly. My sense is basically, again, to your point, is that some clients log in the first few days of the study, and then they tend to turn once they kind of get a read on things. But we do have some clients who have really engaged customers. And in that situation, what we can do is we can make your customer a moderator. Okay, so they can log in basically with a full suite of researcher functionality and kind of really get into the trenches with you on the project. So we do have some clients who will literally partner with their customers on the fieldwork and on the moderation, on the analysis.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great. So unless there are any more questions, I think we're almost running out of time anyway. We've had a couple of nice comments by way of feedback. So Jonathan Newman says, thank you, that was really interesting. I really like the clarity of data access, presentation and visualization. Doesn't have a question, but had to go. Alan says back-end developments are really impressive. So some quite positive feedback there for you, Eugene, and for the team.
Thank you, Alan.
Otherwise, I think it just remains to say thank you very much indeed for your time today, and thank you to everybody for logging in. We hope you'll join us again at a future webinar or lunch and learn. And yeah, just remains to say, I hope everybody has an excellent afternoon.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, everybody. Lovely to see you all.
Thanks,
Have a great
Eugene.
day.
Bye.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.